At night, the tall glass building didn't feel like a real place. The lights were too white, the halls were too quiet. Even the air felt cold and dry, like it had been cleaned and reused 1,000 times. A small cart rolled across the shiny floor. Click. The sound was too loud in the empty hallway. Miles Rivera slowed down and held the cart handle tighter. He worked nights. He cleaned and fixed small things people never noticed. That was the whole point. Do the job, stay invisible, go home. He was not supposed to be on this floor. His list ended 3 floors lower, but his supervisor had stopped him near the elevator and pushed a new paper into his hand. Quick job, top floor, executive area. Take the trash out and leave. Don't touch anything else. Miles didn't argue. He needed the hours. He walked down the hall. Up here, the carpet was thick and soft, so his shoes made almost no sound. The walls had expensive pictures and awards. The air smelled like fancy soap, not like mop water. Then he saw a door with a small gold nameplate. Rowan Klain, CEO. Miles swallowed. CEOs were not real people to him. They were names on screens, faces in news clips, people who never looked down. The door was not fully closed. It was open a little. A line of warm light spilled onto the carpet. Miles stopped. He should have turned around. If he got caught in here, he could lose the job. And if he lost the job, he didn't even want to finish that thought. Then he heard a sound inside. A short, sharp metal click, like a buckle that wouldn't open. A woman's voice came next. Quiet, angry, tired. Come on, not now. Miles's heart started beating faster. Maybe someone was still working. Maybe the CEO's assistant was inside. Maybe security. He told himself, just grab the trash and get out. Miles pushed the door open a little more and stepped in. He looked down first, searching for the trash bin. Then he looked up. Rowan Klain was standing near the big window with the city lights behind her. Her suit jacket was on a chair. Her blouse was half off one shoulder. But what made Miles freeze was what was wrapped around her body. A hard medical brace, thick straps, metal buckles, tight across her ribs and back. Rowan's hands were behind her, trying to undo it. Her fingers were shaking like she was in pain. She let out a tight breath and turned her head. Her eyes locked on Miles. She didn't yell, she didn't move. She just stared at him like she was doing math in her head. Then she spoke, calm but sharp. "Who are you?" Miles tried to speak, but behind him, the door swung closed on its own, and he heard the soft sound of a lock clicking into place. Miles didn't answer her. He couldn't. His tongue felt stuck. Rowan Klein's eyes stayed on him for one long second. Then her face hardened like a mask. "Out," she said. Miles nodded fast. "Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. My supervisor." "Out." He backed up, grabbed the door handle, and slipped into the hallway. His hands were shaking so bad he almost dropped the keys on his cart. He pushed the cart away as fast as he could without running. He didn't hear her call security, but that didn't make him feel better. It made him feel worse, because now he had time to imagine it. By the time he reached the service elevator, his shirt was damp with sweat under his uniform. He kept seeing the same picture in his head, the brace, the buckles, the way her face looked like she was holding pain in her teeth. He rode the elevator down alone. The numbers changed in red light. 49, 40, 30. Miles stared at the doors like they might open to 2 guards waiting for him. Nothing happened. In the basement, he wheeled the cart into the supply room, rinsed his rag with cold water, and hung it up with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. He didn't even finish his full checklist. He clocked out early and hoped nobody noticed. Outside, the night air hit him like ice. A bus hissed at the curb. Miles climbed on, paid with coins, and sat near the back. The window was foggy, streetlights smeared into long yellow lines. He tried to tell himself, It was a mistake. It's over. But he knew how the world worked. People like Rowan Klein didn't have mistakes. They had problems, and those problems got removed. Miles closed his eyes and thought about home. Not a real home, just a small apartment with thin walls and a heater that worked when it wanted to. His daughter, Lila, would be asleep on the couch at Mrs. Hahn's place downstairs. Mrs. Hahn watched her at night for a few dollars and a lot of kindness Miles didn't feel like he deserved. Lila was 8. She had big eyes and a loud laugh when she forgot to be shy, and she had bad lungs. Not always, but enough to scare him. On dry days or cold nights, she would start to wheeze. Sometimes she'd cough until her face turned red. The clinic gave her inhalers, but the good one cost too much, so Miles kept buying the cheap one and praying it was enough. Rent was due in 4 days. He was already short. He did the math without meaning to, like his brain was a broken machine. If he picked up 2 extra shifts this week, maybe. If Mrs. Hahn let him pay late, maybe. If Lila didn't get sick again, maybe. But maybe didn't keep a kid breathing. The bus hit a pothole. Pain shot through Miles' right knee. Old injury, never healed right. He grabbed the seat and held still until it passed. When he finally got off, he walked the last blocks because he didn't want to waste money on another transfer. He climbed the stairs to Mrs. Hahn's door and knocked softly. Mrs. Hahn opened it with sleepy eyes. "She's on the couch," she whispered. Miles stepped inside. The room smelled like rice and laundry soap. Lila was curled under a blanket, hair in her face, breathing light and uneven. Miles watched her chest rise and fall until the tightness in his own chest loosened. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. Then he whispered, so low only he could hear it, "Please, just let me keep this job." Miles didn't know it yet, but by the next night, he wouldn't be cleaning bathrooms anymore because someone from the top floor was about to ask for him by name. The next evening, Miles stood outside the building again, rain tapping on his hood. He stared at the glass doors like they might bite him. He walked in anyway. Warm air hit his face. The lobby smelled like wax and cold metal. He went to the employee gate and pulled out his badge with a shaky hand. Beep. Green light. Miles blinked. He waited for someone to grab his arm. Nobody did. Down in the basement locker room, the lights buzzed and flickered. The place smelled like bleach and damp shoes. His supervisor, Donnie, was by the time clock with a coffee and a bad mood. Donnie saw Miles and frowned. "You," he said, like the word tasted bad. "Don't clock in." Miles's stomach dropped. "Am I fired?" Donnie looked away, scratching his neck. "I don't know what you did, but I don't want to know. You're wanted upstairs." "Upstairs where?" Miles asked, even though he already knew. Donnie pointed up with his cup. "Top floor, executive level." A guy in a suit came down, said, "You go now. No cart, no uniform cap. Just go." Miles's mouth went dry. "Who's asking for me?" Donnie shrugged. Didn't say, just said your name like it mattered. Then he added, quieter, "And Miles, don't make this my problem." Miles left his cap in his locker. He kept his hands empty so nobody could say he stole anything. He walked to the service elevator like a man walking into a storm. Inside the elevator, he stared at the buttons. His thumb hovered, then pressed the highest floor. The ride felt too fast. His ears popped slightly as the elevator climbed. The numbers blinked up. 30, 40, 50. When the doors opened, the soft carpet swallowed his steps again. The hallway smelled clean and expensive, and this time someone was waiting. A tall man in a gray suit stood near the elevator with his hands behind his back. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. He looked at Miles like he'd been expected. "Miles Rivera," the man said. "Yes?" "Come with me," the man said. "Ms. Klein wants to speak to you." Miles followed him down the silent hall, and the CEO's door was already open, like she'd been waiting for him to walk back into her secret. The man in the gray suit walked like he owned the hallway. Miles had to take longer steps just to keep up. They passed doors with no handles on the outside, some kind of key system. Miles saw a small camera in the corner of the ceiling, pointed straight down the hall. He felt it watching him. Up here, everything was quiet on purpose. No loud phones, no clanging carts. Even the lights were softer, like the building didn't want to show its flaws. Miles kept his eyes forward. He didn't want to look at the artwork. He didn't want to look like someone who didn't belong. But he didn't belong. His shoes were clean, but they were still work shoes. His jacket was thin. His knee hurt with every step, and he prayed it wouldn't make him limp too much. The suited man stopped at a big door, dark wood, heavy, a gold nameplate. Rowan Klein. No CEO this time, just her name, like the title was already understood. The man didn't knock. He opened the door like he had done it 100 times, then stepped aside. "Go in," he said. Miles stood at the doorway for a beat. The office was huge. A wall of windows showed the city below, bright and far away. A glass desk sat in the middle like a stage. Everything looked expensive and sharp, like it could cut you if you touched it wrong. Rowan Klein sat behind the desk, straight-backed, black blazer, hair pulled tight. Her face looked calm, too calm, like last night never happened. Miles stepped onto a thick rug that probably cost more than his car. He didn't move further. The man in the suit walked in behind him, closed the door, and left without a word. Click. Miles was alone with her. Rowan didn't look up right away. She tapped on a tablet, slow and steady, like she was making him wait on purpose. Miles's throat burned. He forced the words out. "Miss Klein, I'm sorry about last night. I didn't mean to—" "Sit," she said. Miles froze. He looked at the white chair in front of her desk. He lowered himself onto the edge, careful, like the chair might reject him. Rowan finally lifted her eyes. They weren't angry. They were measuring. "You didn't tell anyone," she said. Miles swallowed. "No." Rowan leaned back slightly, her face still calm. "Good," she said. "Now we're going to talk about what you saw." Miles felt his chest tighten, because the way she said it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like an offer. Rowan folded her hands on the desk. "Answer clearly," she said. "Did you tell your supervisor?" "No," Miles said. "Did you text anyone, call anyone, post anything?" "No." Rowan watched him for a short second. Then she said, "Why?" Miles let out a short breath. "Because I need my job. If I talk about you, I get fired. I have a kid. I don't have time for rich people problems." For the first time, something small moved in her face, like she almost smiled, but didn't. She opened a drawer and pulled out a thin folder. She slid it across the glass desk toward him. Miles didn't touch it. Rowan said, "Your name is Miles Rivera, 35, former Army mechanic, knee injury, 1 child, past due rent twice this year, medical debt at the county clinic." Miles's face went hot. Anger flared in his chest. "You looked me up?" "I needed to know who walked into my office," Rowan said, flat and calm. "And I needed to know if you were the kind of man who could be bought." Miles clenched his jaw. "I'm not—" Rowan cut in. 3 months ago, my car was hit on the highway by a truck that ran a red light. Not the kind of story the board likes to hear." Miles said nothing. Rowan's voice stayed steady. "I broke ribs. I damaged my back. I'm not fully healed. That brace you saw, it keeps me standing long enough to do my job." She tapped the desk once. If the board learns I'm not fit, they'll force a medical review. They'll push me out and take the company with them. They're waiting for weakness." Miles stared at her. "So why tell me?" "Because I can't afford mistakes, and I can't afford people who panic." She leaned forward just a little. "I need someone close, someone strong enough to hold me up when my body quits, someone outside my circle, someone who won't gossip with executives." Miles's voice came out rough. "You want a bodyguard?" "No," Rowan said. "A cover, a driver, a helper. You'll get me into rooms, out of rooms, and keep my secret buried." "And if I say no?" Miles asked. Rowan's eyes stayed on his. "Then you go back downstairs and you spend every shift wondering when your badge will stop working." Miles's stomach turned. Rowan said, "If you say yes, I pay you $2,000 a week, plus full medical for you and your daughter starting immediately." Miles forgot how to breathe. Rowan's voice dropped lower. "But understand this, Miles. If you take this job, you don't get to quit when it gets scary." Miles stared at her like she had spoken another language. $2,000 a week, medical insurance, real coverage. He thought of Lila's inhalers, the doctor visits he kept pushing off, the rent notice folded in his kitchen drawer. He swallowed. "That's a lot." Rowan didn't blink. "It's what your silence is worth." Miles's hands gripped the edge of the chair. "And the catch?" Rowan's voice stayed calm, but her eyes sharpened. "You follow my rules." She lifted one finger. "You do not talk about what you saw. Not to your supervisor, not to your friends, not to your daughter, not to anyone." A second finger. "You stay close when I'm in public. You don't argue in front of others. You don't let anyone see me weak." A third finger. "You answer when I call, day or night, for 6 weeks." Miles felt his throat tighten. 6 weeks with no days off? "You will get sleep when you can," Rowan said. "You will be paid every Friday, and the insurance starts the moment you sign." Miles shook his head slowly. "I'm not a nurse." "I'm not asking you to be," Rowan said. "I have doctors, I have medication. I need someone who can lift, carry, and stay quiet." Miles's knee throbbed like it wanted to remind him he wasn't strong anymore. He almost laughed. "You picked the wrong guy. I limp." Rowan's eyes flicked down, like she had noticed his weight shift. "You still show up," she said. "That's rare." Miles looked away. He could feel the trap closing, but he also felt something else. Hope. Dangerous hope. He forced himself to ask the one thing that mattered. "My daughter, Lila, the insurance, it's real? Not some paper promise?" Rowan reached into another drawer and pushed a single sheet across the desk. It had a company logo and a start date, today. Miles read it twice to make sure his eyes weren't lying. Rowan said, "You take care of my secret and Apex takes care of your child." Miles's jaw tightened. "And if I mess up?" Rowan's voice turned colder. "Then I end your job and I make sure no one hires you in this city again." Miles felt fear crawl up his spine. Then he pictured Lila trying to breathe. He looked back at Rowan. "When do I start?" Rowan didn't smile. She only nodded once. "Now." Rowan pressed a button on her desk and the side door opened, revealing a suitcase and a suit bag waiting like she had planned his new life before he ever said yes.
The man in the gray suit came back in. "I'm Ethan Park," he said, "Chief of Staff." He didn't offer a handshake, he just looked at Miles like Miles was a problem that had been approved. Rowan pointed at the suitcase. "Change," she said. "No more janitor uniform." Miles stood up slowly. "Right now?" "Right now," Rowan said. "We have a meeting at midnight with people who count minutes like money." Miles's stomach twisted. He opened the suit bag. Inside was a black suit, white shirt, dark tie, everything neatly packed, tags still on. It smelled new. like a store he couldn't afford to enter. "There's a locker room down the hall," Ethan said. "Use it." Miles carried the bag with stiff arms. His hands felt wrong touching something that expensive. In the small bathroom, he changed fast, like someone might yell at him for taking too long. The suit fit better than he expected, but it still didn't feel like his. The collar pressed his neck, the shoes were too stiff. He looked in the mirror and didn't recognize himself. "This is a costume," he thought, "and I'm walking into a play where I don't know the lines." When he came back, Rowan was standing now, one hand on the desk for balance. Her face stayed calm, but her breathing looked tight, controlled. Ethan handed Miles a small black phone. "This is yours. It only connects to a short list." Then Ethan handed him something else, a thin card and a short paper. Rowan nodded at the paper. "Sign the NDA," she said. He read the first lines, lots of legal words, but the message was simple. "Talk and you're ruined." He signed. Rowan took the paper without looking at it. "Good." Ethan spoke again. "Rules," he said, like he was reading from a manual. "You do not speak unless spoken to in meetings. You stand behind Miss Klein's left side unless told otherwise. If she says, 'blue file,' you bring her medication case. If she says, 'we need air,' you get her out. No questions." Miles frowned. "What if I think she needs help and she doesn't say the code?" Rowan's eyes cut to him. "Then you learn my tells, fast." Ethan opened another case, smaller, locked. Inside were a water bottle, a pillbox, and a flat medical kit. Miles's throat went dry. "You carry that?" "Yes," Rowan said. "You carry it." Miles nodded once. He didn't like it, but he understood it. Rowan walked past him toward the door. "Come," she said. "Your old job ended yesterday." Miles followed. In the hall, he realized something that made his pulse jump. The cameras were still there, and now they were watching him on purpose. As the elevator doors closed, Miles's reflection slid beside Rowan's. Then Rowan whispered, so only he could hear, "If you drop me in public, they'll eat me alive."
The next week moved too fast. Miles didn't clean toilets anymore. He didn't push a cart. Instead, he sat behind the wheel of a black company SUV that cost more than every car in his old parking lot put together. Rowan sat in the back seat with her tablet and 2 phones. She talked in short, sharp sentences. Numbers, deadlines, people's names like they were chess pieces. Miles learned quickly. Her world didn't stop for pain. The first morning, she got in and said, "Airport." Miles checked the navigation. "Traffic's bad on the bridge." Rowan didn't look up. "Then don't take the bridge." Miles held the steering wheel tighter. "There's a detour. It adds 12 minutes. Rowan's voice turned cold. 12 minutes is a disaster. Drive." Miles drove. Rain hit the windshield hard. He avoided potholes the best he could, but the city streets were broken. Every bump made the SUV lift and drop. From the back seat, Rowan snapped, "Slower." Miles looked in the mirror. Her face was pale. One hand was pressed tight against her ribs, like she was holding herself together. "The road's terrible," said, trying to keep his voice even. Rowan's eyes flashed. "I didn't hire you to complain." Miles swallowed his reply and focused on driving. He didn't like her tone. He didn't like the way she talked to people, but he understood something now. She wasn't being cruel for fun. She was scared, and she refused to show it. At the office, he stayed close like Ethan told him, behind her left side, quiet, watching. Miles started to notice things. When Rowan's fingers squeezed the edge of a table so hard her knuckles went white, it meant pain was rising. When she stopped blinking during a meeting, it meant she was forcing herself to stay steady. When she asked for the blue file, it wasn't about paper. It was her warning. One afternoon, after a long meeting, Rowan walked out with a group of executives. She didn't limp, she didn't slow down. Then, the moment the elevator doors closed and they were alone, her shoulders dropped half an inch. Her breath shook once. Miles saw it and understood. The strong CEO was an act, and he was now part of the act. Rowan kept her eyes forward. "You're staring," she said. "I'm watching. That's the job." Rowan's jaw tightened. "Good. Keep watching." That night, Ethan called Miles after midnight and said only 6 words. "Get to the penthouse. She's down." Miles didn't ask questions on the phone. He just moved. He grabbed his jacket, left a note for Mrs. Han, and took a rideshare to the address Ethan texted. The building was taller than most, with a private entrance and a doorman who didn't smile. "Mr. Rivera?" the doorman asked, like he already knew. Miles nodded. He was sent up without signing anything. No small talk, just a key card and a quiet elevator. The penthouse hallway felt like a museum. Soft lights, silent floor, air that smelled like money. At the door, Ethan was waiting. His calm face looked tighter than usual. "She locked herself in," Ethan said. "She said she didn't need help, then she stopped answering." Miles' heart kicked. "Why didn't you call a doctor?" Ethan's eyes flicked away. "A doctor means records. Records mean leaks." Miles hated that sentence. "Open the door." Ethan swiped a card and pushed it open. Inside, the place was huge and cold. No family photos, no mess, just perfect furniture no one sat on. And then Miles heard it, a sharp breath, like someone trying not to cry. They followed the sound to the living room. Rowan was on her feet, but barely. One hand was on the back of a couch, the other pressed hard against her side. Her face was gray. Sweat darkened the hair near her temples. She looked up and saw Miles. Her eyes flashed with anger first, then something else right behind it. Fear. "I said I'm fine," she forced out. Miles stepped closer. "You're not." Rowan tried to straighten. Her knees shook. She took one step and folded. Miles caught her before she hit the floor. Her weight surprised him. Not heavy, just loose, like her body had given up holding itself up. She grabbed his sleeve, nails digging through the fabric. "Don't here," she hissed. "Don't carry me." Miles didn't argue. He shifted his stance to protect his bad knee and lifted her anyway, using his shoulder like a support. Ethan followed, tense. "Bedroom's this way." Miles carried Rowan into a large bedroom with a dark blanket on the bed and a soft lamp turned low. Rowan's breath came fast. "The brace," she said, voice tight. "It's stuck." Miles knelt in front of her and saw it under her blouse. Hard straps, metal buckles. One buckle had shifted and was pressing into her ribs. "I can fix it, but it's going to hurt." Rowan's eyes widened. For 1 second, the CEO mask slipped. Then she nodded once. "Do it." Miles reached for the buckle. Then Rowan grabbed his wrist and whispered, shaky and deadly serious, "If anyone finds out about this, we're both finished." Miles took a slow breath and focused. He placed one hand flat against the brace so it wouldn't scrape her skin. With the other, he found the stuck buckle. It was jammed at an angle, like it had been forced shut and bent. Rowan's lips pressed together. Her eyes were wet, but she refused to let a tear fall. Miles spoke in a calm, steady voice, the kind he used on broken machines and scared people. "On 3, he said. 1, 2. He pulled. The buckle resisted, then popped free with a hard snap. Rowan let out a sound that wasn't a scream, but it wasn't quiet either. Her head dropped forward and hit Miles' shoulder. She didn't hug him, she didn't cling. She just rested there, shaking, like her body needed somewhere to put the pain. Miles went still. He didn't move away. He didn't touch her more than he had to. He worked the other straps open carefully, loosening them one by one until the brace stopped biting into her ribs. When the last strap came free, Rowan sat back, breathing like she'd run up 10 flights of stairs. Miles set the brace on the floor. The room stayed silent except for the soft hum of the building. Rowan stared at the wall. Her voice came out rough. "You can go." Miles stood up slowly. His knee cracked. He tried not to show it. He turned toward the door. That's when a folded paper slipped from his suit pocket and fluttered to the floor. Rowan's eyes dropped to it. Before Miles could grab it, she picked it up. It was a crayon drawing, a stick man with a crooked smile, a little girl with a big ponytail, a green balloon. The words at the top were messy. Dad plus Lila. Rowan looked at it longer than Miles expected. "Your daughter," Rowan said quietly. Miles stepped closer and held out his hand. "Yeah." Rowan gave it back, slow. "Is she sick?" Miles hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, she has breathing problems. It gets worse in winter." Rowan's face tightened, not with anger, with thought. "The insurance," Rowan said. "Did it start?" Miles swallowed. "Yes, we picked up the better inhaler yesterday." Rowan blinked once. Her voice went softer, but still controlled. "Good." Miles didn't know what to say, so he said the truth. "I'm not here because I like this job." "I didn't hire you to like it." Then, after a pause, she added, "Take Sunday off. Ethan will cover. Take her somewhere outside." Miles stared, surprised. "You're giving me a day?" Rowan looked away. "Don't make it a thing." Miles nodded. "Good night, Miss Klein." As he reached the door, Rowan spoke again, low. "When it's just us, call me Rowan." Miles walked out, but his phone buzzed before he reached the elevator. One short message from Ethan. "Gala tomorrow. The board will be there. Be ready." The next morning, Ethan handed Miles a small schedule card. Miles read it and frowned. "This is packed. It's on purpose," Ethan said. "If she slows down, they'll smell it." "Who?" Miles asked. Ethan didn't answer right away. He walked Miles down a side hall, away from people, then spoke low. "Board members," he said. "2 of them are already pushing for a fitness review. They want a doctor to sign off that she can lead." Miles' stomach tightened. "Because of her injuries?" "Because of power," Ethan said. "Health is just the easiest knife." Miles thought of last night, Rowan shaking, trying not to break. "Does she know?" Ethan gave a thin nod. "She knows. She is pretending she doesn't care." Miles looked back toward the main floor where Rowan stood talking to 3 executives, face calm, voice sharp. No one would guess she almost collapsed hours ago. Ethan added, "There's something else." Miles' eyes narrowed. "What?" "We had a leak. Not a full story, just rumors. Someone said she's not well and being covered. It's moving around quietly." Miles felt heat rise in his chest. "From who? Your staff?" Ethan's face stayed neutral. Could be anyone. Drivers, catering, security. People talk. Miles clenched his jaw. "People like me," he thought. The invisible ones. Ethan handed him a small black earpiece. "Wear this at the gala tonight. If we need you, you move fast." Stared. "Gala tonight? After everything?" Ethan nodded. "It's the biggest event before the deal closes. Media, investors, the board. If she looks weak, it's over." Miles' phone buzzed. A message from Mrs. Hahn. "Leela coughed all night. She's okay now." Miles' chest tightened. He wanted to be home. He wanted to be a normal dad. But normal didn't pay for medicine. He put the phone away and asked, "What do you need from me?" Ethan's eyes locked on his. "You keep her standing, no matter what." Miles looked at Rowan across the room. She turned slightly, and for a second, her eyes met his. Not a command, a warning. That night, under bright lights and rich smiles, Miles saw the board's most dangerous man walk straight toward Rowan with a grin that said he already knew she was hiding something. The gala was in a huge downtown hall with tall ceilings and too much glass. Everything sparkled. Lights, jewelry, cameras. Miles stood near a pillar in a black suit, wearing the earpiece Ethan gave him. Rowan walked in like she owned the room. She wore a dark green dress that hid the brace under the fabric. Her smile was perfect. Her steps were measured. But Miles watched her left hand. When it touched the edge of a table for half a second, he knew. She was fighting pain already. A man approached with two others behind him. He was older, sharp-faced, expensive suit. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Ethan's voice murmured in Miles' ear. "That's Grant Sutherland, board member. Don't let him corner her." Grant stopped right in front of Rowan. "Rowan," he said, friendly and thin. "Long night, isn't it? You look tired." Rowan's smile stayed in place. "Busy is better than bored." Grant leaned closer. "We should talk privately about leadership, about stability." Rowan's eyes flicked just once toward Miles. Miles moved before anyone could notice. He stepped between them like it was normal. "Miss Klein," Miles said, clear and polite, "legal is on the line. They need your approval on the shipping clause." Grant's mouth tightened. "Now?" "Yes, sir," Miles said, not backing down. "They're waiting." Rowan slid her hand onto Miles's arm like it was part of the act. Her fingers were cold. Her weight pressed into him more than it should have. Miles guided her away through the crowd, calm on the outside, tense on the inside. In a quiet hallway, Rowan's breath broke. Her knees wobbled. "Not here," she whispered, angry at herself. Miles pushed open a staff door and got her inside a small coat room. He locked it. The second the lock clicked, Rowan folded against the wall. A champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered. "I can't," she said, voice shaking. "It's shifting." Miles dropped to his knees, ignoring the glass. He pulled the flat medical kit from his inside pocket. "Water. Pills. 2, he said. Rowan took them with trembling fingers and swallowed. She pressed her forehead to the wall, eyes squeezed shut, trying to breathe through it. Grant's voice sounded outside, faint but close. "Rowan?" Miles held his breath. Rowan couldn't answer. Miles stepped to the door and spoke through it, calm and firm. "Miss Klein is in a call. She'll return to the floor in 10 minutes. A pause, then footsteps moved away. Rowan slid down to the floor, humiliated tears ruining her makeup. "I hate this," she whispered. Miles sat beside her, back against the wall. "Then let's get through it," he said, "and end it." Rowan looked at Miles with wet eyes and whispered, "He's not going to stop." And Miles realized the board wasn't just watching anymore, they were hunting. After the gala, Rowan didn't thank Miles in public. She didn't soften. She went right back to being the CEO the next morning. But in private, the cracks showed more often. She snapped at assistants for small mistakes. She stayed up late, then woke up early. She ate almost nothing. Pain made her sharp, and sharpness made people afraid. Miles tried to stay quiet, but it got harder. One afternoon, they sat in the SUV outside a meeting. Rowan stared at the building like it was an enemy. Miles said, "You need rest." Rowan didn't look at him. "I need results." "You're not a machine," Miles said. Rowan's head turned fast. "Don't talk to me like you know me." Miles' hands tightened on the wheel. "I know what it looks like when someone acts tough because they're scared." Rowan's voice dropped low. "Careful." Miles exhaled hard. My kid coughed all night. I still showed up, so don't tell me about no weakness. Rowan's eyes flashed, then went cold. You're here because I pay you. And I'm staying because my daughter needs a doctor. Silence filled the car. Then Rowan spoke, quieter. Grant is pushing the vote up, 2 days from now. Miles turned slightly. What vote? My removal, like it was the weather report. They'll call it temporary until I'm well, then they'll make it permanent. Miles felt a chill. So what's the plan? Rowan stared ahead. I stand there, I smile, I don't fall. Miles nodded once. Then we don't let you fall. Rowan finally looked at him, tired and angry and human. If I lose, they'll come for you too. You're the proof I've been hiding something. Miles' stomach sank. He thought about Lila, about the insurance, about the fragile new stability. He said the truth. I can't go back. Rowan's voice was almost a whisper. Then don't. That night, Ethan called Miles with urgent words. Grant found something. He's coming tomorrow with lawyers. If Rowan can't outplay him, it's over. The next day, the boardroom was full. Not loud, quiet in the way dangerous rooms are quiet. Grant sat near the head of the table, smiling like he had already won. 2 lawyers sat beside him with folders. Rowan walked in last. Miles stayed near the wall, hands folded in front of him, face blank. He wore the earpiece. Ethan sat in the back corner, eyes hard. Rowan took her seat slowly, careful. Miles saw the tiny pause in her movement. Grant began. We'll be direct, he said. There are concerns about your health and your ability to lead during this merger. Rowan's voice was calm. My results speak for themselves. Grant slid a paper forward. Then sign this. Independent medical review, today. Rowan didn't touch it. No. Grant's smile grew. Refusing makes the concerns worse. Rowan's jaw tightened. She was holding pain and anger at the same time. Miles watched her hand drift toward the table edge, knuckles whitening. Then it happened. A small jerk in her shoulder, a tight breath. Her face flickered. Grant saw it. He leaned in, voice soft and deadly. You're not well, Rowan. Miles moved. He stepped forward, not rushing, not panicking, smooth like it was planned. Miss Klein, Tokyo Logistics is requesting immediate confirmation. They've flagged an irregular payment tied to the merger route. Grant's head snapped. What? Ethan stood up at the same time. We received the same alert, Ethan said, and placed a folder on the table, one that wasn't there 10 seconds ago. Grant's smile froze. Rowan straightened, eyes sharpening. Irregular payment, she repeated, now fully in control. To who, Grant? Grant stood quickly. This is absurd. Rowan didn't blink. It's also traceable. One of Grant's lawyers began flipping pages, suddenly not confident. Rowan continued, voice steady. So here's what will happen. This meeting will pause. Our counsel will review the documents, and if anyone here tries to force a medical review while financial misconduct is on the table, I will treat it as an attack on shareholder value. Grant's face tightened. His control slipped. Rowan looked around the room. Vote, she said. Hands lifted. Not all, but enough. Grant's side didn't have the numbers anymore. Rowan won. Miles didn't relax until he saw Grant leave the room with his jaw clenched and his eyes full of hate. Rowan didn't look at Miles, not yet, but as she walked out, she passed close enough to murmur, "Good work." Miles thought they were safe until he saw Grant pause at the elevator and look back with a promise in his eyes. This wasn't finished.
6 months later, the brace was gone. Rowan still went to therapy, but she walked without that tight, careful stiffness. The merger closed. The company got bigger. The board got quieter. Grant Sutherland didn't show up anymore. Miles didn't go back to night cleaning. On paper, he had a real title now, Executive Operations Coordinator. The words sounded fancy, but his real job was simple: make sure the day didn't fall apart. He worked normal hours most days. He got to eat dinner at home more than once a week. And Lila? She was better. The insurance covered the specialist, the good inhalers, the checkups. Miles moved them into a small, clean apartment with working heat. On weekends, he took Lila to the park like he promised. One sunny Friday, Miles drove Lila home from school in a plain, safe car. She talked nonstop about dinosaurs and a class project. Her laughter filled the space where fear used to live. Miles's phone buzzed in the cup holder, a text from an unknown number he didn't need to save. Ice cream, vanilla, put it on the card. By R. Miles stared at it, then let out a real laugh, short, surprised, relieved. Lila looked at him. What? Miles shook his head, smiling. Nothing, kiddo. We're getting ice cream. Outside, the city looked the same. Busy, loud, hard. But it didn't feel like it was going to swallow him anymore. Sometimes you don't become powerful. Sometimes you just get a chance to breathe.